People at Harbor Ridge International Airport thought the dog had snapped. The Belgian Malinois exploded forward without warning, ripping the leash from her handler's hand and launching herself straight toward the toddler car seat resting on top of a sleek, motorized luggage cart. The child's mother screamed. The cart's wheels squealed as it jerked sideways. A baby's cry cut through the terminal, sharp and terrified. Travelers froze, mid-step. Phones flew up. A teenager shouted, "Hey, get your dog!" But Nova didn't care about the shouting. She hit the cart full force, claws scraping plastic, body twisting midair as she planted herself on the car seat, muscles coiled like a spring. Her teeth bared not at the child but at the edge of the padding beneath him. A sound like a low, rolling growl vibrated through the cart's frame. "Nova, off!" Officer Lena Parks shouted, heart jamming into her throat. This wasn't a training field. This was the center of Concourse B, packed with families, business travelers, and jet-lagged tourists. It was supposed to be a quiet morning. Instead, it sounded like chaos. The mother clutched the side of the cart, face drained of color. "Get her off my baby." "Control your dog," she screamed, voice cracking. "I haven't done anything wrong," she kept repeating, as if the words could make time go backward, as if they could erase the sight of a police dog straddling her child's seat. Security officers ran toward them, hands half raised to their holsters. A little boy nearby burst into tears. An older man muttered, "They've lost control of that K9. Everyone thought Nova had made a terrible, unforgivable mistake. They were wrong, terribly wrong. Because as Nova braced herself over the car seat, snarling at something no one could see, a faint electronic chirp sounded from deep within the padding. A tiny light, hidden beneath the baby's blanket, flickered to life, soft at first, then brighter. And what that light would reveal in the next hour would turn Harbor Ridge International upside down and show everyone exactly what one dog's instincts were fighting to prevent. Hours earlier, nothing felt dangerous. Sunlight spilled through the high glass windows of Harbor Ridge International, turning the polished floors of Concourse B into a long, shifting mirror. A line of sleepy travelers snaked through security. Coffee cups steamed in tired hands. A toddler in dinosaur pajamas chased his own reflection on the tiles. Officer Lena Park walked the concourse like she had 100 times before. Uniform, crisp, dark hair twisted into a tight bun under her cap. At her side, the lean tan and black shape of Nova trotted in perfect sync, nails clicking softly. Lena took a sip from her coffee, exhaled. "Routine day, girl," she murmured. "Let's keep it that way." Nova didn't answer. Of course. But she didn't relax either. The Belgian Malinois' ears twitched with every sound wheels rolling, gate announcements, the distant hiss of an espresso machine. Her nose lifted, tasting the air in tiny deliberate sniffs. Lena noticed. "Hey," she said under her breath, glancing down. "Easy. We haven't even started the sweep yet." They were scheduled for a standard narcotics and explosives run through Concourse B and C. Nothing unusual. Holiday weekend crowds, more flights, more luggage, but nothing the K9 team hadn't handled before. Lena glanced up at the departure board, watching rows of flights flip from on time to boarding. Behind her, the intercom crackled to life. "Officer Park," a voice called from the TSA checkpoint. "Need you and Nova for a sweep near gate B12. Scanner flagged something odd." Lena tapped her radio. "On our way." She expected Nova to match her stride the way she always did. Instead, the dog slowed. Her body lowered a fraction, shoulders tensing. Her nose cut through the air again, more sharply now, like she'd just walked into a room that smelled wrong. Lena frowned. "What do you have?" she whispered. No bark, no whine. But Nova's eyes had changed, gone from casual scan to razor focus, pupils narrowed, gaze drifting somewhere beyond the crowd, as if she were listening to something no one else could hear. Lena's fingers tightened on the leash. Probably just catching a food smell from the food court, she told herself. She didn't believe it. They moved toward gate B12, weaving through clusters of travelers. Nova's pace was steady, but the tension in her body never left. She sniffed a trash can, nothing. Past a cluster of backpacks, by a teen group, nothing. At B12, a TSA supervisor pointed at an image on the screen. A carry-on bag with a strange block in the center. "Shape's weird," he said. "Could be just electronics, but the system doesn't like it." Lena nodded. "All right. Nova, check. Nova went to work. She sniffed the bag, working in tight circles. The owner, a college-age guy in a hoodie, shifted nervously. It's just my camera gear, he said. I swear. Relax, Lena replied, eyes on Nova. If it's just camera gear, she won't care. Nova sniffed, and sniffed again. Her ears tipped back for a second, then relaxed. She stepped away from the bag, indifferent. No alert, Lena said. The supervisor exhaled. Good. Sorry, kid. Machine must have hated your batteries. The boy laughed awkwardly and grabbed his bag. The small knot of tension in that corner of the checkpoint eased. Normal day again, but Nova wasn't done. She froze. Her head lifted, nose working the air in quick, urgent bursts. Her body angled away from the security lane toward the open spine of the concourse where people flowed in endless streams. Nova? Lena whispered. The dog didn't even flick an ear at her name. She took one step, then another, pulling the leash taut. Her gaze locked past the crowd, past the pastry stand, toward the wide automatic doors at the far end where the parking garage bridge emptied into the terminal. Something or someone had just entered her world. Officer Park, the supervisor called. You good? But Lena barely heard him, because Nova had never looked like that at the start of a shift. Not once. The woman arrived like any other tired parent. She pushed a sleek, motorized luggage cart, the kind with built-in sensors and an auto brake that followed the tilt of her hand. On top of it sat a deep toddler car seat, latched securely, a blue blanket tucked around the small shape inside. Her hair was pulled into a messy ponytail. A diaper bag hung from one elbow. Her eyes were swollen, as if she'd slept 3 hours in the last 3 days. A boarding pass was clenched in her fist. She didn't look like a threat. She looked like a mother just trying to make it home. Nova didn't see tiredness. She saw something else. The Malinois' ears pinned forward. Her tail lowered, not tucked, not fearful, just tight, controlled, wired. A low vibration started in her chest. Nova, Lena warned, gripping the leash. Heel. The dog didn't heel. She pulled. At first, Lena dug her heels in, assuming she could correct it with a sharp tug. Nova had false alerted once or twice in training. She always reset quickly. This time, she didn't. She lunged. Nova! Lena's voice snapped, but it was too late. Passengers stumbled aside as 60 pounds of focused muscle surged toward the woman with the cart. Ma'am, Lena called. Please stop right there. The woman jerked, startled, eyes going wide as she spotted the rapidly approaching K9. Why is she coming at me? She shouted, pulling the cart closer. What did I do? Nova didn't bark yet. She simply closed the distance, nose low, drawn like a magnet to the front edge of the car seat. Her nostrils flared once, twice. Then she let out a bark so sudden and explosive that half the concourse flinched. The cart's motors whined as the woman tried to pivot away. Get her away from my baby, she screamed, panic detonating in her voice. She's scaring him. People nearby froze. Several lifted their phones. Someone muttered, Wow, hope this isn't another K9 incident. They're going to get sued. Lena slid between Nova and the cart as much as she could, one hand extended toward the mother, the other wrapped white-knuckled around the leash. Ma'am, no one is accusing you of anything, she said, keeping her tone calm. But I need you to stop moving the cart. I've done nothing wrong, the woman insisted, voice shaking. Behind them, airport security officers were already jogging over. Nova didn't care. Her nose drove her forward like a current. She sniffed the front of the car seat again, then the side, then the padding near the baby's hip. Something changed. The dog's entire body stiffened. A low growl rumbled from deep in her chest. And then, like a spring finally released, she jumped. Her paws slammed onto the plastic shell of the car seat, claws scratching, body arched over the small shape under the blanket. The baby screamed. The mother did too. And buried somewhere beneath the layers of padding and fabric, something hard shifted with a tiny, unmistakable click. The terminal shattered into sound. Get off my baby! The woman shrieked, trying to shove Nova away. Hands off the dog! A security officer barked back. Let the handler work! Lena's heart raced. Nova, stay! She shouted, hand on the dog's harness. Nova's lips curled, teeth flashing not at the child, but at a very specific patch of fabric near the baby's ribs. Her growl wasn't wild. It was precise, directed. "Everyone back up," Lena ordered, voice rising over the crowd. "Clear space now." People stumbled backward. A man nearly tripped over his suitcase, dragging his wife with him. Someone whispered, "Is it a bomb?" And the word jumped like static from mouth to mouth. "Bomb squad, concourse B," crackled a voice over Lena's radio. "We're en route." The baby's cries turned to hoarse wails under Nova's paws. Lena swallowed hard. "Ma'am," she said, forcing her voice steady. "What's your child's name?" The woman's eyes were wild. "Theo. He's 2. Please, just get her off of him. He's just a baby. He's just a baby." Lena nodded, but her eyes were on Nova. "Nova?" she murmured. "Let me see, girl. Show me." The dog's ears flicked. For the first time since she'd launched, she broke her stare long enough to glance at Lena, just a flicker, but it was enough. Nova shifted her weight, lowering herself so her paws still pinned the rim of the seat, but her head could move. She jammed her nose beneath the blanket near Theo's hip. Then, with a sharp jerk of her muzzle, she flung the blanket aside. Gasps ricocheted through the concourse. Theo lay there, cheeks tear-flushed, chest rising and falling rapidly as he sucked in breaths between sobs. His small fists clenched and unclenched. He was alive. But pressed tight between his side and the padded wall of the seat was something that absolutely didn't belong. A smooth, graphite-colored cube, about the size of a Rubik's Cube, nestled so close to his ribcage that Lena had to look twice to distinguish it from the shadow of the padding. On its surface, a tiny pale blue light pulsed steadily. "Everyone back!" Lena barked. "Now! Move!" Within seconds, TSA officers were shoving bystanders further away, forming a loose perimeter. The concourse that had been a river of people minutes ago hollowed out around them, leaving Lena, Nova, the mother, the screaming child, and the cube like a scene under a spotlight. "Bomb squad is 30 seconds out," her radio crackled. 30 seconds might be too long, Lena muttered. Because as she watched, the cube's blinking light changed rhythm. Slow, slow, then a little faster, and faster, like a heartbeat that had just sprinted up a hill and didn't know when to stop. The bomb squad arrived in a controlled rush. 2 techs in heavy vests, visors flipped down, a portable blast shield, an armored case for containment. One of them, Miller, Lena recognized. "Where is it?" he called. Lena pointed at the car seat. Beside the child, graphite cube blinking blue. Miller's eyes flicked to Nova, still hovering protectively over Theo. "She's not leaving it, huh?" he muttered. "No," Lena said. "And she's never been this insistent." Miller moved forward slowly, shield raised between himself and the cube. "Get the child out first," he said. The mother lunged. "I can do it." "No," Miller snapped, then softened. "Ma'am, let the paramedic do it. We have to be careful how we move him." A paramedic edged in, hands steady despite the tremor in the air. Nova let out a warning rumble, but shifted just enough for the man to slide his arms under Theo's body. "That's it, buddy," the medic murmured as he lifted the boy. I know, you're okay." The moment Theo's weight left the seat, Nova snapped her attention back to the cube. Her hackles rose. Her paws dug into the plastic, as if she were ready to push the entire car seat away from the world. Miller leaned in behind the shield. The cube's light blinked faster. Now there was a faint whine, barely audible, but enough to make the hairs on Lena's arms stand up. "Miller?" she called. He ignored her, focused, weaponized calm. He held a handheld scanner over the cube. The screen glowed. A series of lines climbed and fell, then stalled. Miller frowned. "That's not right." "What is it?" Lena demanded. "It's giving me a signal profile, but it's not explosive. No standard detonation chemistry." He adjusted the scanner. "I am getting high-density circuitry, micro-batteries, internal motion." "Internal motion?" Lena repeated. "Like a motor," Miller said slowly. "Or more than one." The cube's light suddenly shifted from blue to a jagged, almost frantic white. Theo, now a few feet away in his mother's arms, whimpered once and then went quiet, exhausted. Before anyone could react, the cube clicked a tiny, sharp sound. Then one of its panels slid open by a millimeter. "Everyone freeze," Miller barked. The cube trembled. Something inside moved. Not in a smooth mechanical way, but in a ripple. A shudder, and Lena realized her lungs were locked because she'd stopped breathing. "This isn't a bomb," Miller whispered, voice barely audible under his helmet. "It's a carrier." The panel on the cube didn't swing fully open. It didn't need to. Something poured out. Not liquid, not gas. Something finer. Under the harsh terminal lights, it looked like a thread of smoke, shimmering silver gray, twisting in a lazy spiral. The air itself seemed to ripple as it streamed out and then broke into dozens, no, hundreds, of tiny glittering motes. "Back!" Miller shouted. "Back! Back! Back!" He slammed the shield down, but it was too late to trap all of it. Some of the shimmering motes hit the polycarbonate and skittered away like metallic dust. Others floated upward in a thin, widening cloud. "Ventilation!" someone yelled. "Shut it down!" The intercom crackled with overlapping voices. Nova barked, loud and furious, at the cloud, but then she snapped her head back toward the car seat. She plunged her nose into the padding Theo had been resting against, sniffing so sharply her whole body shook. A whine built in her throat, high, urgent, almost distressed. "Miller!" Lena shouted. She's still alerting on the seat. "Yeah, well, this cube is—" He broke off, glancing at his scanner. The readings were spiking, not in the explosive column, in another field entirely. "Electromagnetic emissions. Microfrequency. This thing's talking," he muttered. "To what, I have no idea." Airport alarms began to blare. The overhead lights flickered as systems rerouted power. A tech flicked on a portable UV lamp and swept it across the cube's interior. Under the violet glow, hundreds of tiny shapes clung to the inside walls. Not insects, not quite. Tiny irregular flecks, each with angular edges. "Those are devices," he whispered. "Motes. Nanodrones." Lena's mouth went dry. On the seat, Nova scratched at the padding, claws scraping fabric. "Wait," the UV tech said, turning the lamp toward her. "Check where she's marking." He shined the light across the indentation where Theo's tiny body had been moments before. Thin streaks bloomed into view, glowing paths, like trails drawn with invisible ink suddenly exposed. They radiated out from a small patch near where Theo's ribs had pressed the fabric, and they led outward, onto the blanket, onto the straps, and faintly, very faintly, onto the front of Theo's onesie. "Tell me that's just spilled juice," Lena said, knowing it wasn't. The tech swallowed. "It's the same signature as the cube. Those motes were pressed into the fabric, transferred. Some of them were on the kid." Theo squirmed weakly, letting out a confused little sound. His mother held him like he might disappear. "What does that mean?" Lena asked. Miller answered, without looking up from his scanner. "It means this wasn't just transport. It was contact. Someone designed this to use a child as the perfect blind spot. No one questions a car seat. And now some of whatever was in there," the tech added, "is gone." Lena stared at the cube, at the empty spaces inside it, at the UV trails leading away from the seat and vanishing into the air. "Gone where?" she whispered. No one had an answer, but Nova did. She lifted her head, nostrils working, then turned sharply toward the back of the concourse. Her body language shifted from alarm to tracking in an instant, her gaze locked onto a direction no one else had thought to look. The exit to the parking garage elevators. They moved the mother, Rachel, and Theo into a private screening room just off the concourse. The glass walls made everything feel worse, like they were fish in a bowl while the world watched. Outside, officers moved in quick, efficient patterns. Inside, Rachel sat on a metal chair, Theo asleep at last in her arms, downy hair damp with tears. She looked like someone whose life had just been split cleanly into a before and an after. Lena stood on the other side of the glass with Nova at her heel. The dog could still smell the cube, the seat, the invisible paths of the swarm. She paced once, twice, then sat staring at the child through the glass, ears pinned, tail rigid. A detective stepped out of the room, closing the door softly behind him. "She keeps saying she has no idea," he said. "No one's touched the cart. No one's gone near Theo." "She lives around here?" Lena asked. "Out in Maple Glen. Drove in from home, parked in Garage B, took the bridge. That's it." Nova let out a quiet growl at the word garage. Lena looked down at her. "You picked up something in there, didn't you?" The detective rubbed his temples. "We'll pull the camera footage, but people walk past strollers all the time. You can't stop every stranger who smiles at a baby. No, Lena agreed. But one of them stopped for a reason. They brought Rachel out for a formal interview, while another officer rocked Theo in the room, under a paramedic's watchful eye. Rachel's hands shook as she clutched a cup of water. She looked at Lena like she was her last chance to understand any of this. I would never hurt my son, she whispered. I swear to you, I don't understand what that thing is, or why. Lena held up a hand. Rachel, I believe you. Rachel blinked. You do? I've seen guilty parents, Lena said quietly. They don't look like you do right now. But someone used you. That's what we need to figure out. Rachel stared at the table, replaying her morning out loud. I strapped Theo into his seat at home, she said. Loaded the cart, drove here. We parked in garage B, level 4. I took the elevator down with the cart, walked straight across the bridge, through the doors. Then, she swallowed. Then your dog was on us. Lena's mind snagged on a detail. In the elevator? Were you alone? Rachel's forehead furrowed. It was crowded. I remember that. A businessman with a rolling briefcase. A couple arguing quietly. And? Lena pressed. Her fingers dug into the styrofoam cup. A man, she blurted. I forgot. He got on at the last second. Almost missed the doors. What did he look like? The detective asked. I don't know, I barely. He had a hood up, dark jacket, sunglasses even in the garage, and a beard. I thought he was just, her voice broke. I thought he was just a tired traveler. He stood really close behind the cart, too close. I tried to nudge it forward. Did he say anything? No. He just leaned over. Her breathing quickened. And I thought he was smiling at Theo. People do that all the time. He reached out and touched the side of the seat, I think. Just a second. Then he pulled his hand back. Nova let out a sharp bark from under the table. Rachel flinched. Why does she keep doing that? She whispered. What does she know that I don't? She's following a scent, Lena said. Not of guilt. Of whatever was in that cube. It was on the cart. On the seat. On Theo. And probably, she met Rachel's eyes. Probably on you. Rachel's face drained of color. So he used us, she whispered. He used my baby. Yes, Lena said softly. He did. Back in the concourse, technicians had extended yellow collapsible barriers around the scene. The cube was now sealed inside an armored analysis chamber. The air still smelled faintly of disinfectant, metal, and something else sharp and sterile, like a hospital right before a procedure. Miller stood with his scanner hooked into the analysis unit. Lines of data scrolled across the small screen frequency peaks, molecular fingerprints. This isn't a chemical weapon, he said slowly, as if the words tasted strange. These are interlinked nodes. Think tiny flying circuit boards with micropropulsion. Some kind of nanoswarm designed to do something. Do what? Lena asked. Could be anything, Miller answered. Overload a network, map a building in seconds, shut down systems. Or, he hesitated, attack a specific biological signature. Like a person, Lena said. Miller didn't disagree. He pointed at a different cluster of numbers on the screen. And it's high-value tech, he added. These motes are tuned, not random. Someone's paying a lot of money for this. We're talking black market biotech, the kind that never shows up on the news, only in classified briefings. A chill ran down Lena's spine. So they piggybacked on Theo's seat, she said. Get past scanners. Dump the cube in a trash can later. Pick up the package on the other side. And your dog ruined their day, Miller finished. He said it with a hint of grim respect. Nova sniffed the air again and suddenly pulled. Hard. Hang on, Lena said, following her. The Malinois dragged her past the cordoned-off area, past nervous agents, past the half-empty gate area, and toward a narrower service corridor branching off the main concourse. Where are you going, girl? Lena muttered. Nova stopped. She sniffed the linoleum. Her nose tracked along an invisible line, stopping at a seam where the floor met the wall. UV, Lena called. Bring a lamp. A tech jogged over, flicked on the ultraviolet light, and swept it across the wall and floor. At first, there was nothing. Then faint, irregular smears began to glow. Little streaks, dots. A spatter pattern leading down the corridor like something had shaken itself off as it moved. It's them, the tech said. Same signature as the cube. They followed the glowing trail deeper into the staff corridor, away from the bright open concourse, and into a quieter space lined with maintenance doors and supply closets. Nova's pace grew more intense, her breath quick, sharp, not from exertion but from concentration. Her paws barely made a sound now. She moved like she was stalking a ghost. The UV beam lit up more streaks, splattered unevenly across the tiles. Whatever this swarm is, the tech murmured, it's leaking residue as it travels. Like crumbs. The trail ended at a large ventilation grate bolted into the wall. The tech knelt, shone the UV lamp across the metal bars. They lit up like someone had painted them with fluorescent dust. He checked his scanner. The reading spiked. It went inside, he said. Lena stared at the dark gaps between the slats, listening to the muted roar of air. You're telling me we have a cloud of weaponized nano drones loose in the ventilation system of an international airport, she said. Yeah, the tech replied. That's exactly what I'm telling you. Nova growled softly at the vent, then pressed her nose against it, teeth bared, as if she could smell the danger riding on every unseen current. They didn't have time to decide what to do next. Shots fired near Concourse D crackled over Lena's radio. Multiple suspects with black cases heading toward security checkpoint 3. Her stomach dropped. Miller swore. They're here, he said. They lost their package and came to fix it. Lena yanked Nova away from the vent. We've got to go, she said. If they realize the swarm got out of their control, they'll do something desperate, Miller finished. Concourse D was a mirror of B in layout but felt completely different now. The easy flow of travelers was gone. People were running. Some ducked behind rows of seats. Others pressed against shop windows or clung to their children. Airport police had formed a rough line, weapons drawn, voices booming commands. Drop the cases, an officer shouted. Hands where we can see them. 3 men in dark hooded jackets moved through the chaos like they'd rehearsed it. They weren't panicking. They were hunting. Each of them carried a sleek, matte black case, the kind expensive cameras came in, held casually at their sides. One of them laughed when he heard the command. He didn't drop the case. He just walked faster. Park, take the left, someone yelled. Lena and Nova cut wide, circling to flank. One suspect vaulted over an abandoned stroller and tore off down a side hallway. Another pushed a traveler aside and sprinted toward a maintenance hatch. The third locked eyes with Lena and then glanced toward the hallway that led back to the private screening rooms. Back to Rachel. Back to Theo. No, you don't, Lena hissed. Nova, get him. Nova launched. She shot across the polished floor, claws barely skimming the surface, a streak of tan and black. The man yanked something from inside his jacket, metal glinted. Before he could raise it, 60 pounds of Belgian Malinois slammed into his thigh. His leg buckled. He crashed into a row of metal seats, the gun skidding out of his hand. He tried to twist, to smash an elbow into Nova's side, but she already had his forearm in her jaws, teeth clamped down not to tear, but to hold. He screamed. Lena was there a second later, driving him to the ground, knee in his back, wrenching the other arm behind him. Who sent you? She demanded, breath ragged. What was in that cube? The man spat blood onto the tiles and laughed, low, ugly. You have no idea what you let loose, he said, voice almost conversational. You think she saved you? Nova growled, muscles quivering, still locked on his arm. If you don't find it in time, the man whispered, turning his head just enough that his words brushed Lena's ear. Everyone in this airport will see what it was made to do. A chill stabbed down her spine. Before she could reply, her radio crackled again. Unit 12? We're picking up the swarm signature near Central Ventilation Hub. It's moving fast. Lena looked down at Nova. The dog's eyes burned with a single, urgent message. We're not done. The Central Ventilation Hub of Harbor Ridge International was a place most people never saw. A windowless, metallic heart of ducts and fans, humming behind service corridors. It felt like a different world. No polished floors here, just concrete and steel. The air was colder, moving in unseen rivers through massive rectangular vents. Technicians huddled around a large console displaying a schematic of the building's airflow. One of the screens flashed red along a line of ducts leading out toward Concourse A. There, a tech shouted as Lena and Nova rushed in. It's riding the airflow toward the main arrivals hall. How can you tell? Lena asked. The tech tapped a readout. We set portable detectors in a few vents. They're lighting up with the same signature as the cube. Whatever's left of that swarm, it's coalescing. Miller was already there, dragging a heavy containment unit behind him like a portable vault with a transparent front. Think of these motes as programmable dust, he told Lena hurriedly. They ride air currents, but they're not random. They're responding to signal pulses from somewhere, or something. And if they reach the arrivals hall? Lena asked. Best case, Miller said. They map everyone's devices and send data somewhere. Worst case, he didn't finish. He didn't need to. An alarm blared on the console. A red dot flashed at a junction labeled X-Housed 3A. That's an exterior vent, the tech said. If they get out there, wind takes them, and we're done. They'll be halfway to the city before we can blink. No, they won't, Lena said quietly. Nova was already pulling toward a narrow metal catwalk. Where is she taking us? Miller asked. To them, Lena breathed. They sprinted down the catwalk, boots ringing against steel. The air grew colder. The hum of fans grew louder, deeper. At the end of the path, a large exhaust panel sat slightly ajar, its bolts loosened, as if someone had worked on it not long before. The tech's handheld scanner screamed as he raised it. They're here, he said. Concentrated. Vents open just enough for them to slip through, Miller muttered. Lena stepped closer and aimed her flashlight into the dark gap. What she saw made her stomach tie in a knot. It was like watching a storm cloud being born in miniature. A dense cluster of glittering motes, gray, silver, black, swirled in slow motion near the opening, pulsing in and out like a breathing lung made of dust. Tiny arcs of static crackled inside it, each spark revealing more of the swarm structure. It was beautiful in a cold, terrifying way. Can we shut it? Lena asked. If we slam it now, we'll blow them outward with the pressure, the tech said. We need them to come toward us, not out. So we need bait, Miller said. Nova moved before anyone could react. She stepped right up to the vent, lips pulled back, showing teeth. Every muscle in her body thrummed like a live wire. She knew exactly where the danger was. Nova. Wait, Lena started. The swarm twitched, as if it had noticed her. It contracted, then elongated, snaking closer to the opening. The motes flickered, altering formation, compressing into a tighter spear-shaped cluster aimed straight at the gap. They're responding to motion and heat, the tech breathed. And to her, one more second, and the swarm would be out in the open air. Nova, Lena yelled, the Malinois dove. She jammed her muzzle into the vent opening and snapped. Her teeth clamped onto the back edge of the swirling mass. Not flesh, not fur, but a thickened, rope-like knot where the motes had bunched together. The swarm reacted instantly. Tiny arcs of electricity snapped outward, jumping to the metal frame, to Nova's fur. The dog jerked, muscles convulsing once. The smell of ozone exploded in the air. Let go, Lena screamed, grabbing her harness. Nova didn't let go. She dug her claws into the metal grating, anchoring herself. Her body shook as another wave of micro-shocks rippled through the swarm and into her, but she held. The cluster faltered. Its forward motion halted. Now, Miller shouted. Techs surged forward. One slapped the portable containment unit against the opening. Another hit a switch. There was a deep thump as the unit's internal vacuum engaged, pulling air and swarm toward its clear front chamber. Nova finally released her grip as the pressure yanked the motes away. She stumbled backward into Lena's arms, chest heaving. The swarm fought the suction, stretching into tendrils, but one by one, stream after stream, the glittering motes were ripped into the chamber. With a clang, the vent panel slammed shut. Inside the unit, the motes spun, collided, then gradually settled, hovering in a tight globe. Tiny arcs of static continued to crackle, but there was nowhere left for them to go. They're in, the tech panted. Seal it. Miller slapped the override. The front panel hissed as seals engaged. A green lock light flicked on. The humming in the chamber dropped to a low, controlled thrum. Lena dropped to her knees beside Nova, hands in the dog's fur. You crazy girl, she whispered, voice shaking. You held them. Nova's heart hammered under her palm, but her eyes were clear, locked on the containment unit, watching, guarding. The crisis didn't end instantly. It never does. The suspects were cuffed and dragged away to interrogation. The cube and containment chamber were loaded into separate, heavily guarded vehicles bound for facilities most people would never hear the names of. Concourse B stayed closed for hours, then partially reopened, then fully, the way a wound closes from the outside in. But in a quieter corridor near the medical room, a smaller story was unfolding. Rachel stood with Theo in her arms, swaying gently as he slept against her shoulder. His onesie had been changed. There was no trace of the UV glowing residue now, just the faint scent of baby shampoo and hospital soap. Lena approached with Nova at her side. Rachel's eyes filled the moment she saw them. "Is it over?" she asked, voice raw. Lena nodded. "Yes. The swarm is contained. The men who used you, they're in custody." Rachel hugged Theo closer. Her voice broke. "I keep thinking if your dog hadn't." She looked down at Nova, and whatever words she'd had dissolved. Tears spilled over her lower lashes. "They used my son as a shield," she whispered. "As camouflage." "Yes," Lena said softly. "But he was never their target. You both were just convenient. That doesn't make it hurt less, but it means you didn't do anything wrong." Rachel knelt slowly, mindful of Theo's sleeping weight. Nova stepped forward, tail low, not wagging wildly like she did at the station, but steady, a gentle swing. She lowered her head, close enough that she could feel the warmth of Theo's breath. "Can I?" Rachel asked. Lena smiled faintly. She'd like that. Rachel extended her free hand. It trembled as it sank into Nova's fur. "You saved my baby," she whispered. "You saved everyone's babies. I don't know how a dog can see what we don't, but I'm so glad you were here." Nova leaned into her touch, eyes half closing. Theo shifted in his sleep, one tiny hand uncurling, fingers brushing against Nova's ears. The dog froze, then relaxed, letting the toddler's fingers tangle briefly in her fur. For just a heartbeat, the humming tension of the day faded. There was only a tired mother, a sleeping child, and a dog who had refused to ignore the quiet wrongness in the air. By evening, Harbor Ridge International looked almost normal again. Flights resumed, announcements returned to their usual board rhythm, and rolling suitcases reclaimed the concourses. Outside, in a cordoned-off section of the tarmac, a white, unmarked van waited with its engine running. Inside, the containment unit hummed quietly, the captured swarm drifting in a lazy orbit inside the clear chamber. A scientist in a plain suit, no lab coat, no name tag, stood with Miller and Lena beside the van. "You understand what your dog stopped today?" he asked. "We've been getting versions of it," Miller replied. "But go ahead, spell it out." The man tapped the containment glass lightly with a knuckle. "These motes aren't designed to kill on contact," he said. "That would make them too obvious. They infiltrate. They map network nodes. They can shut down control systems, corrupt firmware, disrupt communication grids. Imagine an entire airport's systems going dark at once, or a dozen airports, or power stations, hospitals." He glanced at Lena. "Whoever made these planned to test them here," he said. "On a live, real-world network. You didn't just save a terminal full of people from panic. You may have stopped a chain reaction that reached far beyond this city." Lena looked down at Nova. The Malinois was sitting at her heel, tongue lolling slightly now that the adrenaline had dropped, but her eyes still tracked the containment unit. "She doesn't know the word infrastructure," Lena said. "She just knew something was wrong with that car seat." The scientist almost smiled. "Sometimes," he said, "instinct sees the hole in the armor before our fancy systems do." He nodded once at Nova, a rare quiet salute, then turned and climbed into the van. As the vehicle pulled away, Rachel approached from the terminal doors, Theo now awake on her hip, thumb in his mouth. "Hey," Lena said, stepping forward. "I just wanted to say goodbye," Rachel replied. "Our flight's rescheduled for tomorrow morning. The airline put us in a hotel." She dug into her pocket, pulling out a small folded piece of paper. I don't have anything to give a dog," she said, laughing once through her nose. "But I wrote something for you." For her. She pressed the note into Lena's hand and then leaned down, kissing her fingers and gently tapping them against Nova's forehead like a blessing. "Thank you," she whispered to the dog. "You're my hero." Nova wagged her tail once, slow and solid. After they left, Lena unfolded the note. In hastily scrawled handwriting, it read, "Tell your dog she's my guardian angel." And tell her I'll teach Theo that a dog saved his life before he was even old enough to remember it. Lena felt her throat tighten. She crumpled the paper lightly in her fist and looked at Nova. Did you hear that? She murmured. Nova tilted her head, ears perked. You're an angel now, Lena said, scratching her neck. Hope you're okay with that job. Nova barked once short. Bright then nudged her handler's hand as if to say, We've got more work to do. Let's go. As they walked back into the terminal, the polished floor caught their reflections officer and K9 side by side, silhouettes stretching ahead like a promise. Most people passing by would never know how close they'd come to disaster that day. They just remember the delay, the sirens, maybe a rumor about a device in a car seat. But somewhere in Maple Glen, a little boy would grow up hearing the same story over and over. That on a morning he didn't remember, when danger rode the air in a form no one could see, a dog named Nova refused to stay quiet. And because of that, he made it home. In a world built on cameras, scanners, and smart systems, it wasn't a machine that noticed the threat first. It was a heartbeat on four legs. Nova didn't understand technology, or networks, or the black market price of a stolen swarm. She understood one thing. Something near that child was wrong, and she was willing to be misunderstood, shouted at, even blamed until someone finally listened. Sometimes, the bravest heroes are the ones who can't explain why they're afraid, only that we should be. They don't speak our language, but they sense the crack in the armor long before we do. They stand, snarl, and throw their bodies between us and the storm, asking for nothing more than a scratch behind the ear when it's over. Because not all angels have wings. Some have fur, a badge on their collar, and the courage to turn an ordinary morning into the day an entire airport was quietly saved. If this story of Nova's instincts and courage touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Paw Prints of Valor, because every paw print has a story, and somewhere out there, another four-legged hero is already listening to the danger we can't hear.